We will now hear from Ekaterina Paramonova. Katya was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, just 4 months after her parents moved there from Russia. She went to high school in Monroeville, Pennsylvania, and is a senior majoring in nuclear science and engineering with a public policy minor. She lives in Senior House and has been involved with the Gordon Engineering Leadership Program and serves as an assistant student leader this year. Katya has been involved with the UROP project at the MIT nuclear reactor and serves as the co-chair of a 500-person student conference of the American Nuclear Society that will be held at MIT in April 2013. Last summer, through the MISTY Russia program, Katya studied at the Moscow Engineering and Physics Institute, doing materials research for the ITER nuclear fusion reactor. She also organized a trip to the Atom Expo nuclear conference in Moscow last June for 8 students and 2 faculty members, and planned and moderated a panel at this conference. Katya came to MIT because of the opportunity to study nuclear engineering, and she was impressed by the prestige and the breadth of both the academic and extracurricular programs. She really values the global education that we are privileged to have here at MIT. The title of Katya's talk is Thawing the Cold War. Please welcome Katya Paramonova.
My friends call me Mother Russia. People ask me what it's like having 8 feet of snow all year round, and when will Russia stop being communist? This summer, I interned at a university in Russia, and my friend showed me this really high-tech piece of metal he was working on. He said, "Man, if the Americans ever got their hands on this stuff," he paused, looked over at me, and just kind of stopped talking. My other colleagues that work in Russia, they would ask me, "Oh, how tall is your house? Is it 4 or 5, 6 stories?" and whether or not I've ever lived in a ghetto. So clearly, there's a problem. Even though we're 20 years after the Cold War, there's still so much misunderstanding and misconception between the US and Russia. And if you just think daily life and the weather are at issue, try being a dual citizen and working in the nuclear engineering industry. So, in my time at MIT, I've come to realize that my piece of the puzzle is a connection between the US and Russia, trying to help thaw the Cold War and bring together the 2 countries. So let me introduce myself. Здравствуйте, как дела? My name is Katya, and I'm a Russian nuclear engineer. What does that make you think? There's clearly some misunderstanding, right? There's so much potential in the nuclear engineering industry. There's so much potential to bring together the US and Russia. And yet, there's a lot of work to do. So I'm a 3rd-generation nuclear engineer. My parents grew up in the USSR and moved to Albuquerque, New Mexico a little bit before I was born. We then moved up to Pittsburgh. I came to MIT. And just a year ago, after 20 years of being in the US, they decided to head back to the motherland. They left me here all alone to fend for myself. So my dad worked here in the nuclear engineering industry. Now he's working in Russia in the nuclear engineering industry. When he started working, people were questioning what his intentions were. He was in the US for 20 years. They were wondering whether or not he was a US spy trying to get the Russian secrets and get them back. To me, I find that a little bit strange. The US and Russia are very well-developed countries, and they're both trying to do something magnificent, like in nuclear energy. But yet there's still so much miscommunication and distrust. Growing up, I had 2 parallel cultures. I learned English and Russian when I was a toddler, and I would go to 2nd grade, I would play Rugrats tag with my friends. I would come home, eat borscht, and I would watch Wolf Tag Rabbit Soviet cartoons at home. I would go over to Russia for New Year's or summer vacations, and I got to see my grandparents. To me, that was normal. There wasn't any problem with that. But I was naive. I did not understand that a lot of times US people aren't really easily accepted in Russia. Russian people aren't really understood in the US. And so I decided to be an agent. No, not that kind of an agent. An agent of change, an agent of unification, trying to bring together the two countries, trying to thaw the Cold War. So last winter, my father forwarded me a link to a girl on LinkedIn. Her name was Ekaterina Paramonova, and she's a student at the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute. She's also a Katya, she's also blonde, and she's also passionate about bringing together international nuclear engineers so that we all get to know each other. So I sent her a message saying hi, and we started brainstorming things that we could do together. Started talking, maybe we can write a joint research paper, or maybe we could just go visit each other and have coffee in Moscow. And then boom, we figured it out. Atom Expo. So Atom Expo is this huge conference in Russia that they have every year, and we thought, hey, it would be pretty cool to have some people from MIT come up, some Russian students, and then we can just all meet up there. So we started figuring out all the hassle with funding, all the hassle with trying to figure out visas. My gosh, I don't have to do that ever again, hopefully. Trying to figure out some hotel that's in Moscow that's not too sketchy, but actually affordable to real people. Trying to get tickets from June 2nd to June 7th. My gosh, getting up at 3 a.m. in the morning because Russia's 8 hours ahead and Skyping with my colleague. Absolutely ridiculous. I was finally in the JFK New York airport at the gate with a group of 8 students and 2 faculty professors. Finally realized I had found my passion. I didn't know that I could actually be so excited about something. I'd worried that I wouldn't be able to find people in my department who would like to go to Russia, who would like to see what life was like there. I had 7 slots available. I got 22 responses back. It was very shocking, but I was excited. So we got to Moscow. This conference is huge. It's 4,000 people. There's people from 53 different countries: France, South Africa, China, Japan, Brazil, 2 US journalists, and us. There were no other US people there. So if we hadn't been there, if we hadn't been at the student session asking non-proliferation questions, the MIT and the US voice just wouldn't have been heard. And so obviously everyone knows that these kinds of things, there's also a fun component to them too. You just don't go to the conferences. So after a whole day of walking in heels at the conference, we would go back, change, and then go out with our Russian comrades out to go around at Kremlin. So until 2 a.m. we would walk around. Elliot would talk about his hiking trips up to Maine. Pasha would talk about his journalism career. And then we went on a floating river restaurant boat on the Moscow River to celebrate Jean's birthday. You know what? We figured out, hey, we can actually all be friends. It's not that bad. They asked us everything about our American life, everything about MIT life. And we tried to use our iPhone translators to translate word by word and communicate with them. We're all Facebook friends now, and some of them are actually coming here to MIT for a conference in the spring, for the American Nuclear Society Student Conference. So after Atom Expo, I continued thinking, there must be something else at MIT that we could do to help students interact. And so the best way, student exchange programs, why not? So I helped set up a student exchange program with the Moscow Engineering Physics Institute. Oh my gosh, that is a very difficult task as well. So there's so many different loops of paperwork and getting signatures that you have to do. For example, like the professor that I was working with in Russia, he had to go to the Ministry of Education and raise the quota of US people that are allowed to work at a university for research from 0 to 1. There were no other Americans going to Russia to do research at a university. A little bit sad. So when I got there, I got it all approved. I was working on nuclear brazing materials. And I was working with old 1960s Soviet equipment. It's pretty interesting. It's one of the machines I worked on. And then I met Ivan. Ivan's a student at the institute, and he would ask me about all different things in my MIT life. He'd ask me, what my dorm was like, what the city was like. So I showed him photos of Senior House. I showed him photos of Boston Commons all lit up during Christmas time. And he asked me what the best way to practice his English would be. I asked him why. He said he wanted to come to the US and do research for some period of time. Fantastic. I just found someone else who can actually come to the US and continue this exchange program. So next summer, he's coming here, and hopefully we're going to be able to send some students there as well. So exchange programs like this, and the Autumn Expo conference, and just traveling, it really lets you see what life somewhere else is like. Because just like in Despicable Me or Salt, you might think Russians are all very evil and scary and it's always cold. Sometimes it actually gets warm too. So, altogether, let me tell you this. Mother Russia is here to help. My vision for the future is to bring together the US and Russia in nuclear energy so that we have enough energy to actually provide energy to the growing world demand. Rethink nuclear. Rethink Russia. Rethink how you see people. Because sometimes it might not actually be what you think it is. Spasibo. Thank you.